Hi everyone. Let's take a look at the excerpt from Beethoven's Leonore Overture. At the end of this video, I will be playing the excerpt through, but I want to start by discussing some practice techniques that we can use here. The first and most important thing when you're learning anything new, and especially when you're approaching orchestral excerpts, is to work on the intonation. And before you start to do that, just make sure that you have a good fingering that works for you, that you've discussed with your private teacher. I'm also going to be making my fingerings available if you would like to look at them. When I work on intonation, I don't play rhythms or slurs or anything like that. Full sound, every note. And only once I feel like, okay, I've got this phrase down, it's in tune, then I pick up the speed a little bit. I can add the bowing now. But I'm not worried that it's not going to bounce now. I just play the notes where they are with the right bowing. When I go faster, when I go pianissimo, I really don't need to use nearly as much bow. So all of a sudden, it becomes very easy to actually stay in the right part of the bow. The other thing that you want to think about is where are you on the string. So if you play too close to the fingerboard, it's like, yes, it's easier to play quieter, but it's also wispy and the bow wants to move too fast because there's barely any resistance there. So just because it's pianissimo doesn't mean that you want to be close to the fingerboard. Get off the fingerboard, find where the string is going to give you that natural resistance. And then if you just use a very small amount of bow, very smooth transitions, it will be double piano and you will manage to not get too far away, right? So it's super important in both of these phrases, the second one as well. Right, I want to work backwards once I actually get into tempo. I want to figure out where do I need to be? Where is my limit? So actually play with that. Figure out what's your limit. How high can you play this? And remember, these little figures at the end, both of them, they need to taper. So we don't want to show that last note. So it's super important that when I get to it, they kind of disappear, come away. So you want to lean on the elbow, then to nothing. And I would practice this separately so you know this is like a little unit. And the other one too. Alright. Notice I really show the first note, and when I put it back into the phrase, the way I see this is I have two measures that are leading into this little fragment, and then the G is my arrival in the case of the second phrase, and then the rest is a taper. Right, so going to here, then I release. Now, the next line, instinctively, you will want to crescendo. And don't. So the crescendo is not marked yet. So all of a sudden this is so much easier because we don't have to worry about saving. We can use fuller bows, but the trap here is that if you just all of a sudden start using faster bow, it's going to get louder. So you can open up the bowing a little bit, but make sure that you lighten up so that it doesn't sound like it's all of a sudden getting louder. From here, I'm looking at these 4 bars. So my first note is the most important, even in piano. Then release. So think of saying thank you, right? So you lean on the first syllable on this first beat. This comes up, and then the second one is going to be a little bit more. But same way of release. So the F is more. Then release. Then again, even more. Then even more. I think that covers the first section. Let's look at the second half. So completely different issues here. And string crossings, as I said, and the bowing. So you want to start out by same ways before, just playing note by note for intonation. But I'm just going to show you the very beginning because we did go over this idea. Separate bows. Right, and so I would do this maybe 1 bar preferably 2 bars, 3 bars, so that I can actually get to the downbeat. So I would do this the first little bit here all in one go, and then I would go through and add the slurs. Right, and so forth. This goes fast, so don't really worry about those little staccatos. What I do want to see though is that you're using more bow for the slur and significantly less bow for the little notes. So even when it's faster, so I have more than, right, and then the little notes are a lot more concise that way. They're going to be more clear, and I can be a little bit more free with the slurs. So how do we go from slow to fast, right? So you've done note by note, you've done with the slurs, and this is still very, very slow. And then I want to look at this with rhythms. And when I do my rhythms, I'm going to do it with the slurs. It's super important because you're going to be training both hands at the same time. I do at least 2 different rhythms, but there are actually 6 that we can do here. I'm going to show you all of them. The first one is going to be kind of long, short, except you'll see that I don't really lengthen the first note. I just put a space between it. So just like this. Right? Where I have the slur, I could actually stay on the string and really make that legato. That would actually be a better idea. But for the separate notes, you really don't want to be going, because that's really going to mess up the quantity of bow, and I'm interested in preserving those small bows. Now, the opposite of this rhythm that I do to counter this is basically 2 short notes, right? But the first one I lengthen, so short, long. Now, once that's going well, do it faster. So you have, then the opposite. Alright, so that's 2 variations. And then I have 4 in which I take turns lengthening the first, second, third, and fourth notes. I'm just going to show you on a couple of these. It would be long, like that, and then lengthening the second note. Right? And then I lengthen the third note. Then I lengthen the last note. But I don't even really lengthen it. I just stop after it. So now I've done it with 6 different rhythms. If I just try playing it now without the rhythms already, you're going to feel like it's so much easier. Now, one last section here to look at is this ending, right? So we get to these octaves. So lots of double string crossings. Figure out where it's a double string crossing, where it's a single string crossing, and really want to coordinate well with keeping that 4th finger on the string long enough, for instance on the F, so that you don't accidentally uncover the C string too quickly, right? Because then we actually are able to hear the open C as we cross. So cue that down, and you can only lift at the last possible second. Concise in the bow, not too much. The tendency is going to be to slow down, so make sure you practice this with a metronome. And I like to give this a little bit of a shape, because otherwise it's just blasting the same dynamic the entire time. So when I get to here, I go to the E. And subito piano at the end. So you have to be almost a little bit surprised by this. All of a sudden, tiny bow, no pressure, right? So you want to practice just this transition. Nothing, right? Then once you've gone through this whole thing, what you want to figure out is your timing between the 2 sections. So it's kind of going to be the last thing to put this together. You're not going to be counting the measures between the 2 segments. I want you to have kind of a very specific idea of when you're going to come in, because if you leave it to kind of chance, oh, I'm just going to start the next segment when I'm ready, it's going to feel awkward. So you want to decide how many beats you're going to have in between those 2 segments, and then practice each time counting that same number of beats and then starting exactly when you decide. You can actually just practice it with the metronome and work it in, and then it's going to feel more natural.